After living in Kittery, Maine for the last 4 years, our family finally decided that we had had enough of where we were and it was time for a change. So last month we did just that. We packed up our house and our 2 kids and moved. Why is the question you may be wondering, and did we end up leaving Maine and decide to move elsewhere? Or did we decide to stay in the same state? In this video, I'm going to talk about why we decided to move, and if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you if we did truly end up quitting Maine. But first, just let me really quick just introduce myself. If you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. My name's Cam Avery. I'm a local real estate agent and resident, and if you're seriously considering moving to Maine or New Hampshire, definitely subscribe to our channel because it's really all we talk about. So we bought a multi-family home in Kittery 4 years ago, renovated the main house, and rented out the other units to tenants to help offset the cost of living. This is a real estate investing technique known as house hacking, and I highly recommend it as your first purchase in real estate because if you do it right, it can set you up for further investments and future success. Now, when we moved in, I told my lovely wife that this would only be for a year. Fast forward 4 years later, 2 kids and a crazy real estate market, and we were still living in the same house. But the 1,200 square feet that fit both of us was beginning to feel really cramped, and we just knew we had to do something. We had to find a different place. To be honest with you, I had been putting off buying for a few years, hoping that something would shift in the market. I don't know what, but more inventory, lower interest rates, but it just kept getting worse and worse until it was either buy something now that you can reasonably afford or get priced out of your own backyard. I finally decided to take the advice that I've been giving now as a real estate agent for years and years and buy a place that we could afford regardless of what the market is doing. As I've said in other videos, I love living in Maine, but if the right place came up in New Hampshire, I wouldn't hesitate to move back to the state that I grew up in. The biggest draw for Maine for me personally, specifically southern Maine, is that there are still some great rural parts of the state in comparison to Seacoast, New Hampshire. And so during our search, we looked at homes in both states, really unsure of where we would actually end up. After offering on a few properties and losing to multiple offers, I know, right? I'm literally a real estate agent. What kind of a real estate agent am I? I can't even win myself a house. Well, to be honest with you, I am a very frugal real estate agent who really does not want to be house poor. And so we were very particular and picky. Didn't want to overpay. Anyways, we saw a home come on. It looked great. Definitely it was out there in terms of location from where we wanted to be, but could potentially work. And so we waited the weekend, figuring that it would go under contract. And I called the listing agent who actually said that they did not have any offers on the place. So we set up a showing for that afternoon, and when we walked into the house, we just knew it was perfect for us. It literally had everything we were looking for: big, open concept kitchen, great living rooms, bedrooms, and even the work from home office of my dreams. Essentially at that point, I'm just like, okay, take my money, let's do this. After putting off buying a house for 4 years now, we finally decided it was time to make the move. First of all, to get into a bigger house for our family, and second of all, because it had always been our vision to not live in the multifamily forever, but instead rent it out and keep it as an investment property, which we were able to do. In fact, the income from that property is greatly helping to pay for this house, which is truly a perfect fit for us. So the big question, did we decide to quit Maine and move somewhere else? No. In fact, I think I've decided that I never really want to leave Maine. We ended up moving to a small town in southern Maine called South Berwick that we had actually lived in 5 years ago, and it was where we had bought and sold our very first home, and so we knew the area. We knew that we loved living there, and so when it came time to make the decision about where we wanted to live, I think for my wife and I, while New Hampshire is great, has many pros that would actually benefit us, there's just something about living in Maine. Once it gets in you, it's really hard to get out. And I know the comments. I've heard them all. You don't live in the real Maine. Maine doesn't start until you get to Augusta. No, you actually live in northern Massachusetts. I get it. All you Mainers who live in the central and northern parts of the state, I hear you. I know what you're saying. I understand there is differences. But listen, I love the great state of Maine. I've traveled throughout all of it. It's where I choose to live. It's where I choose to raise my kids. It's where I choose to vacation. And so if that doesn't make me a Mainer, then quite frankly, I really don't care. I just love living here. I don't plan on leaving, and so you better get used to me. Whether or not you think I live in Maine or northern Massachusetts, Honestly, I'm just grateful that this is where I get to live and raise my family. And so now I've got to go start unpacking all the crap that we moved, which, by the way, moving just sucks, doesn't it? If you're on the fence about moving to Maine, you can download our relocation guide. It's right in the description below. And make sure to watch this video here where we tell you things that really no one talks about when it comes to living in Maine.